Hey guys, so the Netflix original film Mute has been released. Now this one stars Alexander Skarsgard, who was in Tarzan, as well as Paul Rudd, obviously Ant-Man, and is directed by Duncan Jones, who's directed Moon and the Warcraft movie. So this has been released by Netflix, so this is a Netflix original. Now essentially the story of this original film is that it centers on this main character Leo, played by Alexander Skarsgard, who has a bit of a situation when he's a kid. He gets into an accident that causes him to lose the ability to speak. Now, he's actually from an Amish family, so instead of the doctors fixing him at the time that they actually could, his family decides to take him home, and he's never really gained the ability to speak. Eventually, we flash forward, and we get to see Leo grown up. He's now a bartender in a very futuristic city. And he falls in love with a girl who he works with. Now, he falls in love with this girl who has a secret, but she just won't tell him what this secret is, but he still accepts her anyway. Then, eventually, what happens is that she disappears, and he makes it his personal mission to go out and find her at any cost, and he'll let no one stop him from finding the love of his life. Now, I was really looking forward to this movie because I'm a really big fan of Alexander Skarsgård. I'm a pretty big fan of Paul Rudd. I'm not a super big fan of his, but I thought it would be interesting to see the two working together. As far as Duncan Jones go, not a super big fan. I mean, I like his stuff, but it also has to kind of take it with a grain of salt, which really is not the best way I want to watch his movies. But I thought this movie would be interesting. My expectations weren't super high, but I was looking forward to it. Now, it also helped that this was sort of set in sort of that dystopian future, which really can't help but be compared to Blade Runner. I don't think it's quite on the same level because it's not quite as far in the future with like fully flying cars and all that stuff, although it does have some of those influences. But technology and society itself hasn't quite taken the turn yet towards that Blade Runner route. It's more in the middle, where it's heading towards that direction. It's just not fully there yet. As for my opinion for the movie, I feel like it's just sort of all right. It has a lot of great things going for it, a lot of good things that I feel like are nestled in there somewhere, but it just wasn't brought about in the right way. It has great story elements and things that I think would really make this movie a lot more impactful, but the way it was presented just didn't quite do it for me, especially on the first viewing. I've only seen it one time, but there were just certain elements that I feel could have been properly explained or better explained that would have given a lot more weight to certain elements of the story. The biggest example that I have of this is that there's a point in the film where I'm not going to get into any spoilers, but there's something that's revealed about our main character's love interest that's revealed just a little too early. I feel like it would have been a little bit more impactful and have a lot more of a big twist feeling had they waited a little bit longer. They really revealed something that happens with her, the side story, just a little too early, and the way they did it felt like it was very disjointed. They just sort of cut these scenes in with other scenes throughout the movie, so that very much disturbed the flow of the movie. I don't know if that was intentional whatsoever, but I don't know if it was just the way it was cut or the writing of it. I'm not sure which one to really blame for it, but it just felt very off kilter. Like, it didn't really make sense. It felt very out of place, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. I wish there would have been a little bit more context. They could have easily used those scenes later in the film. It would have fit perfectly. Why they had to reveal it so early, I don't know. But I feel like that kind of took away a lot from the film. Once you kind of figure out some things and you are told this information, you sort of just are waiting for that next thing to happen now. You're not on this adventure with Leo trying to figure out what happened to her or what may have caused her to disappear or where she's at, what happened to her. You kind of lose that interest because you start taking those steps preemptively. They would have taken that same story elements that they used, which there's plenty of great stuff they could have used, but just moved it around a little bit. I think it would have been a lot more impactful and a lot better of a movie and a lot better of a flow that would have made me want to watch it again and again because it would have had that bigger impact. It just wouldn't have been spoiled by that earlier cut that made no sense whatsoever. Now, as for the acting, I think that the best actor, hands down, in this movie has got to be Alexander Skarsgård. The guy conveys so much emotion and trouble, like this past that he has with being Amish, but also being in this future where you're completely surrounded by like screens and lights being flashed at you, pictures, cameras. The way that it's presented, I thought was really, really interesting. I feel like they had something really great there. They just didn't quite capitalize on it enough. But what I did get to see, I did like a lot. The way he conveys so much emotion without saying pretty much a single word for the majority of the movie is actually really cool. I thought that was a really nice idea. I'm sure that there's been plenty of movies that have done it in the past, something along those same lines, with a character who just doesn't talk all that much. But this is a character who literally cannot speak at all. So I think the way he communicates, the way that he has to sort of live in this world where communication is everywhere, was really an interesting idea, and I like that a lot. But he was hands down the best person in the entire movie. Paul Rudd did a pretty okay job. I feel like his character needed a little bit more things to do. That, again, it was kind of disjointed with what his character was doing with what was going on with Leo and Alexander Skarsgard character. It just didn't quite fit perfectly. I was confused for parts of it. Other parts I was really excited and into it. So it just felt disjointed. But Paul Rudd's performance overall was pretty good. Not that normal sort of funny guy consistently as he normally plays. This one gave him a little bit more drama stuff to do, but I feel like that's not really his type of role. So it was a little bit difficult to see him in that role. As for everyone else, they pretty much sucked. I didn't like any of the acting apart from these two characters in this entire movie. Justin Trudeau, whatever the hell his name is, was in this movie, and I did not like his character at all. Leo's main love interest girl who disappears, acting was horrible. I did not like it whatsoever. Anybody that's not those two main characters, I thought really didn't do a good job whatsoever. They were in a completely different movie. And I just didn't get it. I didn't feel like these were real people. I felt like they were literally caricatures at times and not actually characters that I wanted to care about and find out more about in this world, find out about their lives. I could really care less. All I cared about was Leo. A little bit what was going on with Paul Rudd's character, but really I could give a crap about the rest of the characters. That's a little bit disappointing, but I guess it also puts that main emphasis back on Leo, which kind of helps in a way. I don't know, it's kind of weird. But anyway, that's just my thoughts on the acting. Now, as for the direction of this film, again, it was directed by Duncan Jones, who's done Source Code, Moon, the Warcraft movie. He really doesn't have a big, extensive list of a filmography. I've seen his movies. I think they're okay. The best one, hands down, for me, has been Moon. The rest are just kind of okay. But for the majority of his movies, especially the ones he not only directs, but he also writes either the screenplay or the actual story of the film, they're a bit disappointing for the most part. I wouldn't say I'm completely disappointed with the movies. It's just I feel like there's so much more that could have been done that was left on the table. There's so much potential that he has these sprinkles throughout the films that are absolutely fantastic, and I would love to delve into that world. And then it goes into this weird part where I don't care about the characters, and it's just not interesting. The action may become boring at times. The story becomes extremely muddled and confusing, and it makes me just very disinterested in his movies. And that's a real shame because I think he has a lot of talent. It's just he doesn't know how to work with it yet. I think he's still trying to figure it out. Of course, that's coming from a guy who really doesn't know that much about filmmaking. I just like movies a lot. But that's just my thoughts on Duncan Jones, excuse me. Doug Jones is a completely different guy. That's just my thoughts on Duncan Jones. I feel like he's just so much potential, but it's kind of wasted sometimes. And that's kind of a shame. Overall, I would have to say, although I was really looking forward to Mute and I was really excited to watch it, when I finally got to watch it, I wouldn't say that I was disappointed by it. Again, I think I just have to go with the best phrase I can go for with it is that it just had so much untapped potential. There was so much in this film that really could have made a great movie, but I think with the hands that it was in, the way it was presented just really wasn't that great. I feel like it could have been much better of a movie, but I think it's still watchable enough and enjoyable enough that you can get something out of it. At least kill about 2 hours. It's good enough for that. Some of the action's pretty good, things like that, but just not the movie that I really wanted it to be. And for that reason, the overall grade that I have to give Mute is a C-. To be honest, I was really debating the grade that I wanted to give to Mute. I was really teetering on that D+ rating. But I feel like it just had just enough of those little things that made me want to actually go back and watch it again, that's why I would have to give it a C-. And I think those little things sprinkled throughout just gives it just enough. I don't necessarily want to see more about this movie. I really don't think it has much more to explore, especially with the way it ends and the way things progress throughout the film. But it's an okay movie to watch. Definitely good enough to watch if you have 2 hours to kill, or you're just bored and need something to watch on Netflix. So anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on Mute. As I had mentioned, it is now streaming on Netflix, so you can watch it on your computer, tablet, phone, TV, anything with the screen that can download the Netflix app or stream it, whatever. Be sure to check it out. It's good enough to watch, but not fantastic in my opinion. But I think it's still worth a first-time watch for the most part. But other than that, that's all I have for now. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.